and action.
Yo, guys, what's up? Original OC channel with you on this Tuesday, the 22nd of April, 2025. What's up, guys? Shit, I was doing some building some lawn furniture outside and I got distracted. I did absolutely zero prep. Zero prep for today's show. So I need to do a couple of quick things. Terry Stern interview. Where is this thing? Don't have it. I don't have it. Sort by date. Ugh. Ugh. Oh, I thought I had it. Let me see if I can find it. It's hard, guys. It's hard. Found it. Okay, cool. Let's take this, copy, and listen, this is how the sausage gets made, guys. This is how the sausage gets made. Boom. Paste the link. Find the link. Boom, boom, boom. All right. Okay, cool. I did it. I did it. All right, let's share the screen. This screen kind of has a spoiler. The screen has a spoiler. Yep. Let's do this. Let's drop the link to join the panel. Let's do that. Join the panel. Let's drop that link. Boom. And now let's pin the link. Let's pin the link. Listen, the show isn't super professional today, but it's okay. We're going to make it up in volume. Going to make it up in volume. Let's see here. Live. Oh, I love it when apps aren't working. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. YouTube. Let's go to my channel. Oh, I'm live. Let's do it again. YouTube. Live. Let's pin the link. Boom. Link pinned. Now, let's just share the link with a few people. Boom. Boom, that works. Drop this in here. Boom, all right. I think we're ready to get started. Hey guys, it's the OC channel. We're gonna actually cover some topics today. We got Logan Hall's Grill Streams, who is a member of the channel. Who's first? What's up, Logan? By the way, you should set your alarm for 8 p.m. tomorrow night. That's 8 p.m. world time. We may have an unboxing from Logan Hall. We got Lolex in the chat. We've got St. Peter in the chat. Is the biggest boss in the watch world about to talk shit about the biggest boss ever? Actually, Terry Stern is not asked about me at all. in this interview. We got Solvents in the chats. We've got Buckley. Patek stinks. Thank you. Whole milk in the chat. Terry sounds like one of those haters who can't afford the tariffs and never will. No. SE is in the chat. Terry Stern, Patek Philippe CEO Terry Stern, can certainly afford them. Do they make sense economically for Switzerland and America? Well, time will tell. Terry Stern doesn't mind them. Trust me, he just says they are unnecessary. We will get to the comments momentarily. We have this entire interview transcribed thanks to SE. SE hired some translators and translated this German into English. We've got Kelso in the chat. Check on OC, changing the airtime before we go. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I don't like when I do that. I don't like to change the airtime, but I did it. Sorry about that. It was originally 3:45 and changed to 4, and I was late. Hey, you know what? It is what it is. It is what it is. These delays are okay. I get it. The delays are frustrating. I'm sorry, but I'm here now. There are 40 people watching. By the way, like the live stream. Let's get to 20 likes. Come on, guys. 20 likes. We've got Mr. Tutor to You, who will be joining us tomorrow for an epic unboxing. Right, Mr. Tutor to You? Will you be joining? 8 p.m. tomorrow? Will you be unboxing something? Yes or no? Let us know in the chat. You're welcome to jump on. We're going to have an epic night of unboxings, maybe. Tomorrow night, watch Colony Channel. Got Andy Lewis. Who else do we got here? We got Tan from France in the chat. Got Matthias, Grandmaster Chime. All right, we got everybody. Cool, here's how it's going to work. I'm not going to waste time. We're going to get right to the article. We have the exclusive. Terry Stern conducted an interview with NZZ, which is, I think, some German publication. They get the scoop on all, or maybe they're Swiss, I'm not sure. But they get the scoop with all the industry giants in the watch industry because they're close to all of the Swiss companies. And we have right here, it's true. Boom, this is it. We have the article, exclusive interview with Terry Stern, and we will be covering the whole thing. Oh, but it's behind a paywall. Oh, no. Oh, guys, I'm so sorry. It's behind a 19 Swiss franc paywall. And as a result, we will not be reviewing this article. Aw. Hey, SE, what's up?
Good evening. Good morning. Good day.
It's good afternoon here, and it's good evening there. What's up? Luckily, however, SE retained a team of crack translators to circumvent the paywall to go directly to the print article. Actually bought a good old-fashioned newspaper, correct?
Absolutely correct. I bought 10 to be sure.
10 because they had the picture of Terry Stern on the cover. Let me see if I can pull that up. It's actually pretty good. It was the thumbnail for today's stream. And let's see here. Let me pull it up. Open with another app. And then I'll drop this into a tab. Let's see here. Boom. And here it is. The actual physical paper. Look at that giant, enormous picture of Patek Philippe CEO Terry Stern. And we will go through the interview in 5 minutes. What's up, Essie? Anything going on in your world?
Well, not too much. Actually, if you look at that picture, you can really tell how an interview is supposed to be done. He learned from the last one that he did with Brisant. Brisant is how you would pronounce it. Another Swiss publication, but when I read that interview, I mean, everyone knows it. First, I thought, how could he even approve something like that to be printed or to be aired in any kind of way? They were so harsh with him. It was such short and direct questions. And in this case, you can really tell
Yes.
he's done his homework this time.
Yes. And the questions, instead of being hit pieces, that were designed to catch Terry Stern in an off moment, and they were obviously the most rude and unprofessional questions that were posed. And of course, Terry Stern was caught off guard by the rudeness and impoliteness of the questioning, and accidentally shared some comments that were misconstrued, that were completely taken out of context, misconstrued, and then the publication unprofessionally aired them.
Absolutely.
Which was a gross violation of journalistic ethics.
Absolutely.
But listen, that's all. It's all in the past.
From a journalistic standpoint, it was absolutely inhumane.
It was egregious. It was an egregious violation of journalistic ethics. But now we have a new interview with Terry Stern, and he talks about tariffs. He talks about the U.S. President Trump. He talks about the Nautilus. He talks about their dealer network. He talks about the price of gold, talks about inflation, and a whole bunch of other things. And guys, this is a blockbuster interview. You are going to get a soul reading into the strategy of Patek Philippe. And if you think that I'm over exaggerating and hyping it, that's true, because, hey, what else do we have to do on a beautiful Tuesday evening but to talk about watch-related topics with friends? So Essie's on the panel. We had an amazing time, and I kind of half joke that Essie has to be sick of me by now because I forced him to spend like 4 solid days with me, morning, noon, and night, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But how did it feel being forced to spend so much time with?
Well, I can't confirm that it was terrible. Actually, quite the opposite. I'm not the best at playing at doing that shtick, but
I know.
But yeah, in this case, definitely, we will see that you can read a lot between the lines. So it might be an interview that doesn't reveal too much, maybe, but I think there's a lot that you can really, that he actually allows us to look into his perspectives between the lines. And therefore, I think it's informative. So it should be worth everyone's while.
It should be fun. It should be fun. Listen, we don't get interviews with Terry Stern that often. We have the exclusive. Nobody else in YouTube is covering this at all. There have been 0 articles. There have been 0 videos. There's been 0 analysis. And that's why this audience is the most informed and best educated audience in the world, because we bring you these kinds of stories. So we're going to get to it right now. Let's see if I can figure out how to share my screen.
Actually,
over 40 people watching. Go ahead.
Let me add that, in my opinion, you said in jest, but on the other hand, I think it's really true. A lot of those channels just parrot what another channel has said, and there's not too much extra information that you can derive from it. And if something has gotten to a point where you can use it for clicks, then it's especially perpetuated, and a focus is put on it. But if you want to stay really up to speed, then sometimes you have to kind of unlock from that mainstream information train that some other channels are clearly on, and I think you can profit from it.
we are going to profit from all of the incredible knowledge in this interview. And let's see how I can figure out how to share this Word document here. Doo-doo. And there it is. Now, let's figure out how to stretch this puppy out. Boom. And then we will zoom in. Boom. Look at that. We are ready to go. Here it is, published in, do you want to name the name of the publication?
Neue Züricher Zeitung. So that's the New Zurich newspaper.
Exactly what you just said. The Geneva-based watchmaker Patek Philippe is one of the few watchmakers barely affected by the current industry crisis. Lower demand isn't leading to unsold models, but merely to slightly shorter waiting lists. This is due to cautious production planning and deliberately missed expansion opportunities. President Thierry ignored the rush to China, which is catching up with many companies today. He told the NZZ newspaper over 10 years ago that he doesn't have enough watches for his existing customers in Europe and the United States anyway. He doesn't rule out Chinese buyers, though, not buyers of the company, but buyers of watches, as many travel abroad to buy their watches there anyway. At the start of Watches and Wonders, at the start of the Watches and Wonders Watch Fair in Geneva, we met up with the owner and president, Thierry for a chat before the now shelved announcement of the high tariffs on Swiss watches in the United States. So that's something important to note, that this interview was conducted before all of that crazy drama about 31% tariffs and then a pause on the tariffs and all that stuff. Today, there is a 90-day waiting period in place, or a 90-day pause on the implementation of sky-high tariffs from Swiss products into the United States. But there was a slight increase from 3% to 10% in the rate of the tariffs. So, but this interview was conducted before all the tariff shenanigans went into place.
So, what's your take on the introduction? What do you think?
The introduction is easy because is interesting because what it basically highlights is that Patek Philippe had an opportunity to expand production, but they didn't. That they've been very cautious in their plans to expand production of watches. Also, they indicate that they didn't invest heavily on serving the Chinese market. And that has been particularly helpful because those brands like Longines, Tissot, and others that relied significantly on the Chinese market have been hurt disproportionately than others, as China has not recovered at all in the global market. As a matter of fact, let's see here, just to pull something up. To slightly switch gears and share some detailed information.
So while you're doing that, I could actually talk about how I read the start and the article in general. Obviously, this article is a direct result of the mistakes that have been made in the Balance interview, like half a year ago, and especially the caption that it's kind of cut off in your file, but it still says he often swims against the tide. So that was the caption to his photo. That kind of implies that it's a cool thing to go against the grain and to be a little bit rebellious, a little bit less adapted to what everyone else is doing. So this entire article is written in a way that kind of praises Patek's strategy and position.
Vindicates him. It offers sweet vindication.
Right. So it starts out saying one of the few watchmakers barely affected by the current industry crisis. And it's not leading to unsold models. It's merely slightly shorter waiting lists. Not no waiting lists anymore, but slightly shorter. And cautious production. So obviously the interviewer was very keen on giving an interview that would present Patek in a very positive light, which we should bear in mind. But on the other hand, it could be true to some extent, and we actually, I think it's it's a good chance for us to give our personal opinion on it, on different kinds of aspects, and highlight whether we think it is true or not. And we should actually obviously also take into consideration what the chat has to say about it.
Let's do that. And by the way, reporting fresh numbers out of the Swiss Federation of Horology, or whatever they're called, Federation of Swiss Watches. Basically, the numbers for March are as follows: shipments to the United States up 13.7% year over year. Shipments to the United Kingdom up 10.6% year over year for the month of March. But check out the weaknesses. Hong Kong for the month of March down 11.3%, and China down 11.5% in March compared to last year. Look at these numbers compared to 2 years ago. Hong Kong down 45% and China down 45% from a year ago for the month of March. For January to March combined, so year to date for the first quarter of 2025, the US is up 7.4% compared to last year, 9.3% from 2 years ago. And look at Hong Kong and China. Hong Kong down 12% from last year, 32% from 2 years ago, and China down for the first quarter of this year 22.5% from last year, down a whopping 39.1% from 2 years ago. So the Chinese market, Hong Kong and China, are definitely hurting. There is very, very weak demand there. And the USA has firmly established themselves as the number one market for watches. Just a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, China and USA were tied. Actually, China was the number one market for watches. China, Hong Kong, Singapore were all in the top 5. Now they've all fallen down dramatically, and the United States has the most voracious, that's a big word, like gymnasium, voracious appetite for Swiss watches. Yeah. Any comments on that?
Well, clear numbers, but not too surprising. And I think it's going to continue in that direction. The US market, I think consumerism is very strong. Has traditionally been very strong in the US. When we went to Disney World, for example, kind of from a European, or let's say German, or let's say just my perspective, it's kind of interesting that all the merch stores are placed directly after the different like rides, and people really buy a lot in those. I don't think it's a far stretch to say that Germans would be a lot more careful on what to buy, and maybe buy one item, and Americans just culturally are more inclined to really enjoy their lives and spend more, and in extension, that also obviously extends to Swiss watches as well.
All right, so we got 50 people watching. We've got 20 likes. We should have at least 30 likes, guys. So if you're a lurker or whatever, if you love the stream, upvote the live stream. Let's get to 30 likes, and we will not drag it out. We're going to go through this interview, and we're going to comment question by question. We got Chalk Flew up in the chat. We've got Doc and his watch. John D's in the chat. Ryan Hofre, Vamal's with us. All the cool people here. Got Diego, Omar. Everybody's here. So let's get rolling. Guys, type in your comments or questions in the chat. If you want us to actually read them, highlight them, and we will pull them up. Here we go. Patek Philippe
Yeah.
CEO Thierry Stern interview, fresh interview, and let's get to it.
So I think the one aspect, cautious production planning, that's something that you really have to give to Patek Philippe, because they really think a lot about what they're doing. I know people will come out with the Cubitus and shouldn't they have done more focus group checking or whatever. But what we're talking about here is to make sure that not too many models, not too many variations of the same model hit the market. There's a proper discontinuation structure and so on. And one thing that I also found interesting and wanted to check out was whether he really deliberately missed expansion opportunities and ignored the rush to China. And if you look at it, there are currently only 2 retailers in China. There are 8 in Hong Kong and 1 in Macau, but you can really tell that he did not touch China too euphorically in comparison to other industries.
There's nowhere in China where you can buy Patek Philippe. You have to travel to other places. Fair point.
Well, there is one in Shanghai, and there's one another place, but it's just 2. I mean, compared to Germany, which had close to 50 5 years ago, compared to America, which still has. I mean, maybe you can pull up the numbers later on, but it's absolutely insignificant in China, mainland China.
Yep, actually, you did do an analysis of the numbers, and Patek Philippe in the United States has, I believe, 29 doors, and they have also some doors in Canada and Mexico too. So in all of North America, I believe it's 51 total doors. Europe, there's over 120 doors for Patek Philippe, but in certain Asian countries, there's very, very few.
Well, actually, in the US, they only have 38 right now. So 51 was America in general, like Guatemala and Canada as well, which has 3. And they've really gone down significantly. We can actually touch on that later on when he actually covers it in the interview.
Let's do that. Let's get straight to the first question. Mr. Stern, how do you view the year 2025? I actually expect a good year for Patek. The feedback on our products is very positive, and we're being careful not to overproduce. Depending on what happens with US tariffs, that will certainly have an impact, especially for customers in the United States, which would be a shame. But for us as a Swiss manufacturer, it's an advantage that we're all in the same boat. So I think it's being pretty direct that he thinks that they still are doing a good job matching supply to demand, that they're not producing too many watches. And from a competitive perspective, all of the manufacturers are Swiss. All of the leading luxury timepiece manufacturers are Swiss. So they would all be subject to the same tariffs. So it puts them all on the same level playing field.
Right. And since he knows that he's one of the top dogs in that field, he's not that concerned. What I really was wondering when I looked at that first question, you know that I went to his defense after the last interview pretty hard, because I thought he was being treated unfairly. Not entirely. Obviously, it was a mistake, but I don't want to go too deep into it anymore. But if you look at this interview and you compare it to all the other interviews that have been given in the past years, like many years, then this is the first time that he's really carefully choosing his words, which makes me believe that these questions were given to him beforehand, and either he knew what he was about to say, or this is a lot more planned in this case.
A lot more deliberate. Yes. Next question. How important is the U.S. market for Patek Philippe? Answer, Thierry Stern, it has been our most important market since 1850. Sales are very good, and we could sell significantly more there if we had more watches.
And this is an example of it. I mean, the answer consists of 2 lines of argument, and it's very short, very concise, and precise. So he says, it has been our most important market since 1850, which means it's always been, basically always been that way, and it's also going to be that way for the next couple of hundred years. You know what I mean?
Right.
So he basically says this is just a little blip. Don't you even? The U.S. market is very important, has always been, will always be. Don't worry. And he expands on it by saying that if he had more models that or more pieces, he could actually sell them all in America just as well, which is a fact, and we know that. And he indirectly says, I'm not going to do it, which is why we're always going to be in demand, and people will.
He packs a lot in this statement. He packs basically there's politics, external messaging, like, hey, you know what? We could be doing, America's great. We could be selling a lot more there if we wanted to. Like, in other words, like, demand is very, very high there, guys. We could still sell everything that we make. Don't think otherwise.
Right.
So let's move to the next question. Now, the next question is going to be a little bit spicy, a little bit controversial. I want to please advise people in the chat not to talk politics and to not go down rabbit holes of engaging in unnecessary, divisive political debate if it can be avoided. But this is definitely an interesting question to answer. What happens if tariffs are high? Will Americans then buy their watches abroad? Now, it's kind of a loaded question. It's a little bit leading question. But Terry Stern's response is as follows. That's quite possible. Anyone who wants to buy a watch for 100,000 francs or more can book a flight, stay overnight in Geneva, and buy the watch there. It's cheaper than buying it at home. Okay. The biggest losers would be U.S. retailers. One wonders whether President Trump wants to ruin companies in his country. Ooh, tough.
Well,
I mean, it's tough to kind of avoid the politics implied
absolutely,
in there.
it's tough, and I think we shouldn't try to put a lid on that at all. I think you can talk politics to a certain extent if you adhere to certain rules, how to speak with one another, and also to accept another perspective on something. I think he's very spicy, as spicy as he can afford to be. And again, I think those words were chosen very deliberately and carefully. But he's expressing his state of being upset with the whole situation, which is something that a lot of people in the world are feeling at the moment, and it's not even necessary to sugarcoat that. But what I find very interesting is that he openly admits that people will buy it abroad, and then he doesn't say it, but might forget that they bought it abroad at customs.
Well, listen, rich people aren't rich for no reason. They're rich because they know how to avoid.
Yes.
I didn't say evade. I just said avoid situations where there's wasteful spending.
Right, but to take that as a given is kind of interesting. As a public statement.
I don't think a lot of people will consider. I think a lot of people will just stop buying watches if prices went up by 20 or 30%. They're going to sell a lot fewer watches. But for those who want the watches, they won't be deterred. They will simply go to the places where the watches are cheaper, especially if there's such a clear ROI on flying to Japan or flying to Korea or flying to places in Europe, Italy, or Switzerland, and buying the watches there and saving $5,000-$10,000. It more than pays for the trip. It's kind of a no-brainer. So to that extent, he's expressing the viewpoint of super rich people. Like rich people aren't dumb. If they want $100,000 watch, they're not going to pay 130 for it. They're going to go someplace where it's cheaper, and everyone else is going to have to suffer. And then the dig that he says is the ones who are going to suffer are the U.S. retailers who are going to be cut out by the rich people who avoid paying those high prices.
Right. I mean, that's really going to be interesting if it really comes that way, how that plays out. I mean, if they had asked the CEO of Richard Mille, for example, I think the answer would have been different. Patek has, and I've said it on earlier streams, has a different kind of customer base, a much broader customer base, I think, than Richard Mille, for example, obviously due to the price point. And I don't think that the high-end buyers of Patek bother whether they pay $200,000 or $260,000 for a watch if they buy 10 watches of that caliber in order to get a Grandmaster chime or something. I don't think they would this kind of market would break down, but it would definitely hit the Calatravas and the so-called entry level pieces where people really do care whether they pay 20,000 more than in Europe, for example. And in these cases, I mean, I think that's what he means. In these cases, people would be inclined to actually travel. And it's going to be really interesting if it really goes that way, how that price difference is afterwards.
Yep. I think we've covered that one. If there's anybody in the chat that has a different opinion or has more light that they want to share on it, feel free to let us know or jump on the panel. That's the best way to do it. Let's keep going. Next question. The price of gold has risen sharply. How are you reacting? We had to raise prices, but we were very cautious, about 3% for gold. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Patek Philippe did implement quietly, and we covered this on this channel. They implemented price increases earlier this month, secretly under the cloak of secrecy. They raised prices, but they were very cautious, about 3% for gold watches, 1.6% for steel. Other brands have adjusted their prices significantly more. If the price of gold continues to rise, we'll have to adjust again, but I didn't want an excessive increase right now.
I mean, again, sorry, go ahead.
Terry is the king of kind of always giving a dig at another brand in his answer without naming the brand. But basically he's saying, like, listen, Rolex raised prices significantly. There are other brands have announced that they're raising prices significantly. We're being a little bit more cautious, but reserving the right to raise prices.
Hey guys. Hey OC.
What's up? It's been a long time, Marcel. How you been?
Yeah, good. I was busy with tennis. I bet we're going to play tennis soon, maybe, if it's not going to be wrong. Anyway, here is the thing, OC. Since we know each other already for the last 3 years in lease, we know that every year the companies increase their prices between 10 to 20%, depends in the companies, and also depends in the metal. And we also know, regarding the tariffs, that precious metals like gold and platinum going to have a major increase in prices anyway. So what the tariffs not really say nothing if they don't increase the prices 50 or 100%. So if this is only about 20 to maybe 30%, so it's not that much different. Just look, let's go back, and you're going to see.
Well, okay. First of all, I think you're exaggerating a little bit when you say like prices are they do price increases of 10 to 20%. It's nowhere near 10. No. That's not nowhere near that. Typically the price increases are around 3% a year. I mean, they barely keep pace with inflation. Rolex for a long time didn't do price increases at all. They went a long streak of year after year after year with no price increases at all. And only this year did they do a pretty significant increase on Daytonas, and they did no increase on platinum the last 2 years. So, I mean, there are other brands like Breguet and JLC and Omega and others where you can clearly see over the past 4 or 5 years prices have gone up 40%.
Yes.
Rolex, the prices have gone up, but I mean, it's not as much as I think you just said.
Well, maybe because in Japan they actually showed that the price increased way more. But you're also right regarding the other company that you mentioned, and also precious metal also increased quite a lot.
These companies will use any excuse to raise prices. Tariffs, price of gold, inflation, someone sneezed the wrong way. It doesn't matter. They'll always find a way to say that prices go up. And you'll actually be shocked. There's a question and answer here about pricing. And Terry gives kind of possibly ludicrous answer. But at least here he's saying basically, listen, we reserve the right to increase prices. We haven't increased them as much as we could, and we're being cautious. Fair enough.
And also another thing that you need to take into account is that companies, when they increase the price for regarding everything that we talk about, let's say inflation, let's say tariffs, let's say prices of the gold went up or whatever, when in the economy, when things get reversed, suddenly the price of the gold drop down, suddenly the economy stabilize. They never reduce the price. You're never going to see,
the prices never go down. You
exactly.
never, ever reduce prices.
He's gonna
Only
get to that.
AP. Only AP is actually to their credit, actually
Really?
reduced prices.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't know that.
at a point in time, the Code 1159 chronograph was over $52,000, and they're like, you know what? We raised the price too high. This is way too high, and they dropped it down to 48,000. But but they very rarely will you find once they go up, they never come down.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next question. What if the price of gold falls sharply? Okay, interesting scenario. Let's see what happens. What if the price of gold falls sharply? Then things get complicated. A price reduction sounds logical, but it's difficult. It can affect the collector value. That's why we approach price adjustments with caution. So in other words, go ahead.
No, exactly what I said before. Now, when the price of the gold drop drastically, they have a difficulty to put the price down. It doesn't work with them.
Yeah. So in other words, if the price of gold goes down, what's going to happen? Well, we're not going to do anything, because we don't want prices in secondary to drop because we care about the people who've already bought Patek Philippe, and we don't want their prices to be negatively affected if we do something to adjust prices. Yeah.
And that actually has happened, even with Patek in the past, and they've learned from it. And therefore, it's very important for them to, like in the question before, he is presenting himself like the very moderate general, so to speak, someone who is very considerate, and he wants to he wants to say stay calm. We're going to do it very slowly and steadily. And he continues it here by saying we can't really drop the prices, so we're not going to go up too high, which is kind of contradictory to the price development in the past couple of years, because they've really pumped up the prices just as well.
Go ahead, Marcelo.
No, but it's something that I wanted to say. But guys, if you guys think about it, already the companies, Patek, Rolex, they already charge way a lot for the gold and the platinum pieces. If you take these pieces today, by weight, how much they cost in weight, you're going to see that the prices is already very inflated.
Prices are outrageous. Especially like Omega, where you have a watch like a Speedmaster that sells for $8,000 US, and then you look at the full gold version, and the full gold version is like $45,000.
Yeah.
So, in other words, if the price of gold goes down, what's going to happen? Well, we're not going to do anything, because we don't want prices in secondary to drop because we care about the people who've already bought Patek Philippe, and we don't want their prices to be negatively affected if we do something to adjust prices. Yeah.
And Exactly. So the price
that has
is
been that
extremely
has been
inflated. So it's
yeah,
even more ridiculous for me to say, hey, I'm increasing the price more 30% because the price of the gold went up.
Marcelo, it is ridiculous, but it is the
Mm,
same with all the brands, and it has always been that way. And
mm,
therefore, there is no connection to it. They just set the price. They have a certain strategy for the different families, and they're doing as if there was a connection, but there is none. So there's also no need to
mm.
actually talk about it.
Now, I do want to bring up something as it relates to style, because I think we do have a responsibility to dissect and microanalyze every single thing that Terry Stern says. But I know SE is a big defender, so I want to hear your comment on this. When he responds to this question, the previous question, he says, if the price of gold continues to rise, we'll have to adjust it again. But I
Are you
didn't
showing it
want.
at the moment? Are you showing that text?
I'm showing, yes, I'm showing it on the screen right now. But
Oh yeah, sorry.
um, I'll highlight it right here. But I didn't want an excessive increase right now. The use of the word I in the answer here, um, sometimes when you're a chief executive, you tend to use the word we or us because it shows the team made the decision. And we all know that Terry Stern far too often will use I or me when he's talking, whether he does it deliberately or not, to basically indicate that he is the sole person. I mean, he did it in that interview when he launched the Cubitus. It was all about me, and I did this, and I designed that, and I wanted to do this. And here he is going back to that old style of saying, "But I didn't want." Like, it almost makes it sound like other people in the organization wanted to raise prices more, but he didn't want to. Are you reading into that, or is this just him typically using the word "I" to indicate that,
It,
hey, I'm the boss there, I make the decisions?
yeah,
Well,
it's
here's
funny.
Let
No, no,
SE
sorry.
jump in here. Let SE jump in here first.
well, here's my take. I mean, he starts the answer with we had, and
Mm,
we were very cautious, and so on. So, um, as, if you look at other companies, many CEOs are kind of just staying within that company to promote themselves for a transition to another company.
mm,
And I think many CEOs would much rather switch with Thierry Stern, who is not only the CEO but also the owner of Patek Philippe. And obviously, it's cool to hate on winners, so to speak, also by the genetic lottery, or also to see giants fall. We all love that. And then I think one aspect is that we like to dissect what people like that say and then try to tear them down. The question is whether we can really read too much into the use of the different pronouns here, because it might have been something that he just like unintentionally used in this case. But on the other hand, I can actually see your point, and there is a difference. And we already established that the wording was kind of considerate in this case. So I wouldn't doubt that you could actually read something into the use of the first person personal pronoun here, because he says, I didn't want an excessive increase right now. Again, it shows that I'm the captain of this ship, and I'm the one having my foot on the brake as well, and on the gas, depending on what happens. And I think that's what he wants to establish with that interview as well. This interview says a lot more than what can be seen on the content level, but he also he wants to promote himself again as a good leader on a meta level, and that's what he might be doing here.
Marcelo, as someone who
yeah,
understands
yeah.
the concept of me more than
No,
anybody, what is your
I
what do you think?
mean, what you have here is one more, is to show the difference between uh, cooperative companies, how we have the Richmond group and we have the Swatch group. When you are under that groups, you cannot say I. You probably say we, because the group have the power. And here is basically separate itself as as an independent company. Like
he's an authoritarian ruler of Patek
yeah,
Philippe. He's the
we are
dictator.
independent. Yeah, we are independent. I can do whatever I say is gold. You know, basically what is putting here.
Guys,
No, I wouldn't agree. If you look at Wilhelm Schmidt and the way he speaks, of course he uses the first person singular, the first person personal pronoun as well. So obviously he says we have a team, but he also admits when he has a certain influence on a new design, for example. Obviously, Thierry Stern does that more, but he has every right to do that. And some people like that, others don't. I mean, I don't want to draw comparisons, but everyone can make up their minds as well. Some people, in some cases also men, like to establish themselves as someone who actually does what he says and goes with his gut feeling, and gets a significant amount of people behind them, and they find that kind of good that they do as if they know what they want, instead of just trying to be politically correct and always using the right words and being very careful, which in some cases is more boring. So do with it what you want.
All right, we've belabored this point. We've analyzed the word "I" to death, I think. But I think he did say "I" intentionally because he wanted to kind of indicate like I was the one who didn't want to raise the prices too much. I think they probably had a conversation about it, and he said, "No, let's be more cautious." Then the next question was about what if the price of gold went down, and we read that answer. It was basically, listen, price of gold falls, too bad.
Actually, you could skip the next one as well, because the machining of platinum, we all know that, is more expensive than working with gold, which is why the price of platinum watches is higher, despite the fact that it's cheaper on the market.
Yeah, the best excuse is to say when the prices go down, don't worry, the prices always go up. So at least when they go up next time, we don't change the prices.
And consistent with our goal to drag out the show as long as possible, we'll read the question and answer anyway. Platinum is cheaper than gold, but platinum watches are more expensive than gold watches. Why? I mean, that's actually a logical question to a normal reporter or to a normal analyst.
I'm going to answer. This is not regarding only watches. This is also in jewelry, and this is because of the toolings.
Good guess. Platinum is extremely difficult to work with, says Thierry Stern. It's soft, sticky, and wears out tools quickly. With a tool that can make 50 gold watches, platinum, it won't even produce 10. The tool breaks. This is complex.
Or rings.
or the bracelet or the rings. This complex processing explains the higher price, despite the cheaper raw material. They'll come up with any excuse to charge more for platinum. They charge more for titanium. They charge more for ceramic. They charge more for any opportunity they have to position something as a special
but you
alloy.
know, see, this is a very good example, because especially the platinum and the titanium, because we just said, I'm going to increase the prices because the gold is so expensive. Well, we have proved that the platinum is nearly 50% of the price, and you guys charge even more than the gold. So, bottom line is that the prices of the material doesn't really matter.
No, it's the tooling. It's the tooling.
Charge. Yeah.
They'll come up with any reason. Here's a question about distribution, which we all care about as customers. We always analyze this to death. So you've significantly reduced the number of your retail outlets. Is the restructuring complete? And we actually get a very direct answer. Yes. We now have around 280 dealers. This is in line with our production volume. There's no reason to further decrease or increase the number, which this is a pretty direct statement here. He's basically saying, listen, We've gotten to the point where we have the right number of dealers. We also, what he says is this is in line with our production volumes. So somehow they've done the math and they've tried to figure out, okay, how many watches do each of our dealers get? And now we're at the point where we're delivering the right quantity and mix of models across all our dealer network. And so I think this is a pretty important question because a lot of people ask every year, do they chop 10 or 20% per year like Rolex consistently does? Rolex consistently chops between 5 and 10% of their dealers, and there's no end in sight for what they're doing. Patek here, Terry Stern's giving a very clear answer. We're at the level we think is a good level.
Which is kind of interesting, but because right now they're at 270, and he should know that. Which means he's trying to say we're done, but the question is whether he really is. In this case, I would kind of challenge that notion. The numbers are pretty interesting. If you care, I've did some research. Obviously, Bobby Google, I don't know these by heart, but I did some solid research, so the numbers are correct. So in 2019, there were 421 Patek point of sale in the world. 421. Now we're at 270. In just in the USA, we had 78 in 2019, and now we have 38. So that means the US numbers have been cut into less than half the numbers of 2019, and the global numbers dropped by almost 40% since 2019. So it's been a steady decline, but it was accelerated in 2024. Kind of interesting why, we obviously don't know. But in my opinion, it hasn't stopped yet. And dealers are not happy. I mean, I highly doubt that he will ever get rid of the retail network which many people actually advise them to do the AP approach. I don't think he will be as stupid as doing that. That's a strong word, but in my opinion, it is short-sighted, because when the economy goes down for a longer time, you might want to use the expertise that you have with a retail network that actually has a certain expertise. And so bottom line is he really dropped it significantly. And now he has more product for less points of sale.
Marcelo, in Tokyo, have you noticed that over the last few years they've reduced the number of Patek boutiques or stores?
Actually, it looked like they opened 2 new Patek boutiques. Actually, Rolex boutiques also, they open 2 more. They open a brand new building in Ginza, and also in Motesando they open one more building. They also doing a lot. The CPO program became the retail style of selling. Like if you go to Rolex, they first offer you a CPO before you even allowed to request for a retail. Now saying that, this is actually funny because this power, especially with the top top 4 companies, how we say Patek, Richard Mille, AP, and the Patek, these companies that actually don't have watches no more for retail. I mean, it's nearly you don't have watch. You go inside, the places look like a meeting salon. There is no watches to sell you. If you become equivalent to get a piece, you think you're going to argue that the piece is more expensive, let's say 50% more. I don't think so. Here an example. I give you the best example. Let's say, let's go, for example, because I know Rolex, right? So let's go, for example, for Lamont, right? Lamont cost how much retail was, I think, 35K, right?
55.
No, 50.
Okay, 50. They selling the watch for I think 200 or 250, right? I think
Right.
the gray
225.
market price.
Yeah.
Okay. If they come to you or see and they tell you, listen, or see, I offer you a Lamon for 120. Do you think you're going to say no? I don't think so.
Yeah, you're picking an extreme example, obviously.
Yeah,
So, I
yeah, no,
mean,
no, but because I took example of Alamon because I know that I believe there is that extremes in AP, very specific pieces, and also in Patek, very specific pieces. So they can be focused on that pieces and basically, I would say, yes, suck you off on that pieces, right?
yeah. What does that have to do with the number of dealers? Anything?
Um, I don't think,
All
yeah.
right, next.
But
All right,
crazy,
Marcel.
you bought that piece like half a year ago, and you thought it was 30 instead of 50. That's
Yeah,
kind of a
so
flex.
no, it was over a year ago.
Mm.
Over a year ago, we got that.
All
Maybe 2
right.
years, right? How long
I
ago?
got 2 years ago, and I got it for 6.7 million yen. If you calculate 6.7 million yen, it would be around maybe in American dollars would be like 40K something.
Cheap. Yeah, it was cheap.
Mm.
Next question, and this one is in. This one's going to require a little bit of analysis because it's kind of counterintuitive. Uh, do
Mm.
you rely on your own boutiques or on retailers who offer
Mm.
several brands? And
Mm.
the answer, Terry Stern says, we don't want any new boutiques ourselves. It's the retailers who approach us. Many want to expand, not only because they have great confidence in Patek, but also because other brands belonging to large corporations are opening their own stores and they therefore have too much space. Then they come to
Mm.
Rolex and to us and offer us more space. Hmm.
Would you really
I'm
say
not.
that's counterintuitive? I mean, they only have the boutiques in London, Paris, and Geneva, and obviously they're not there to exercise any kind of control. It's more of giving customers the chance to get a little bit closer to the brand. Some a little like advertising in those 3 flagship stores, but it's not surprising that that many retailers approach them because many brands have tried to follow AP's example and have come out with many boutique only models. They have expanded their online marketing and so on. And I think if I derive the gist from what the retailers that I speak with tell me, many brands have become very, very confident, have created a huge self-esteem for themselves, maybe far beyond what their real power in the market was, due to the fact, I mean, Buckley said that very rightly and numerous times, that they thought they all of a sudden they were a lot bigger than they actually were, because
Mm.
a rising what do they say, a rising tide raises all boats. And
Yes.
they moved to a boutique model, and they might be the first to regret that. AP might not, even because they are strong enough, but they will. But the
Mm.
retailers are feeling it, and the retailers were very bummed out by that development, and they didn't forget and they won't forget. And now they're in a situation that they have more space, or they even build additional space, but he doesn't want to use that, because that he doesn't want to be the filler for other brands that actually walked
Mm.
out, because that would actually water down his position. And it's absolutely clear why he
Well,
does that.
you know, guys, also during the COVID, the damage that the COVID they create with the top brands, that we all knew that the excuse was that it's hard to make the watches. That's why there is a shortage in watches in the boutiques. That's why the prices in the gray market is inflated. We all took that as granted. So there is no watches in the boutiques. Now, after the whole thing with the corona finished, there is a lot of watches
There's
produced.
more watches than ever.
Yeah,
and
they still follow. Yeah,
there's zero watches for only watches for display only, not in the cases.
exactly. So
Yeah.
so how what's going on? So we're never going to see watches for sales no
No,
more. They
because
actually, yeah,
because it's going to because it puts the power back in the hands of the buyers. If you see watches are
yes.
sitting in the cases, desirable watches, no, they don't want that. It's all about, hey, oh, you want a Submariner? Tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you want it for? How many watches do you want to buy from us? When's the last time you bought something? Do you have a wife or girlfriend? And then 2 or 3 weeks later, if you're qualified, then magic! Oh, great news! We've got the Submariner for you. Come on in and take a look. So we know what's going on. By the way, I want to read part 2 of the answer because it's kind of it adds a little bit more context. The follow-up question is, you don't want that? Meaning you don't want big boutiques? Terry Stern says, I don't need 300 square meters. That's too much. I can't give a dealer 30% more watches just because they're setting up a bigger store for me. So you combine these two things together, and it's kind of strange. I mean, yes, Richemont and Swatch, they're spending a lot of money building Panerai, monobrand Panerai, IWC, Breguet, Blancpain boutiques. And I think some of these retailers, Rolex is telling them, hey, we want you to give us more space, or we want you to give us a dedicated boutique. And those same brands then go to Patek and say, hey, do you want us to do the same with you? Because I think they feel like if they open a Patek only boutique, that it will create a tighter partnership with Patek, and they'd be less likely to lose their Patek relationship in the future. So I do think that brands are approaching Patek. It is, Patek doesn't care if the boutique wants to spend $2 million spending, if the retailer wants to spend $2 million building a new boutique, right. But they're clearly saying, listen, we can't give you any more watches. So it doesn't make a lot of financial sense for you to do it. Rolex is really the one that really cares about image more than Patek. I think Patek, being way smaller, they don't need to have so many dedicated stores.
But by the way,
for him is that
let us see jump in here first.
Yeah.
One problem for he actually makes it about the watches, and it would actually create a problem for him if they used it as an argument to get more watches, because now we have given you something, give us something in return. But on the other hand, the problem is that I think maybe all of the retailers are trying to do the same thing that you just outlined so rightly. And look at us. I mean, we as consumers have gravitated away from Omegas, Snoopys, and so on, also to Patek Philippe and Rolex. And the retailers did also realized, they knew it all the time, what significance Rolex being an authorized dealer for Rolex or Patek, what that actually meant for that business model. But they're realizing it even more now that there's a completely different time in comparison to 3 or 4 years ago. And therefore, they're all approaching him at the same time, which makes their offer, gives it a very inflationary touch. And it's not that special. It's not that they are giving something to him. They're actually trying to prove themselves to him all at the same time. And he's kind of giving a signal to them as well, I think, showing them that that's nothing that they actually accept to do, but that they're willing to do, and that makes it a lot less attractive for him.
Well said. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, and there's an expectation from us too that when someone opens a brand new boutique, that we better go there because they're going to get a lot more watches. They're going to get a lot, when they open, they're going to have a ton of watches that they're going to want to sign up new customers.
Or because it's a new boutique, there is zero relationship because it just opened. So maybe I can build a relationship there, right?
Right, and that's what's happening at a lot of new dealerships in the Western United States. People are opening up new boutiques, and people are going to get them saying, "Hey, I'd like to start a relationship with Patek." Ryan Hofrey, Flamingo Blue highlighted comment. Thank you very much. Gonna buy a Patek. Need permission. You don't need permission for Patek Philippe, but Patek Philippe is pre-approved. There is a global watch embargo in place. Please check with us before you buy any purchases. Rolex, Patek, AP, and Richard Mille are pre-approved, but you should still reach out to us anyway and get express permission. But thank you, Ryan.
But see, I know Rolex, of course, do CPO program. I think AP started that even before Rolex. Does Patek do that style of CPO program as well, like that you
No,
buy
they
a
don't.
used one
No.
before? No. Would they do that? Do you see them doing this in the future?
No,
I
don't think they
don't.
have the capacity.
You mean the watchmaking capacity to refurbish old models?
The servicing capacity, because they're
No, to
not
keep.
they're not industrialized to the extent that Rolex is, and a lot more goes into servicing a Patek watch than a Rolex watch, and therefore it would take a lot of their resources away to launch something like that. And they're also structured in a different way, in my opinion.
Yep. CQ, welcome to the panel. We're talking about this blockbuster exclusive interview with Terry Stern. We've got it. Nobody else has. And it was conducted with NZZ are they Swiss or German, SE?
That's Swiss.
Swiss.
But,
and we've got the English translation.
But it's the German part of Switzerland. Like Zurich is the main part, the capital of the German-speaking Switzerland, and Geneva is like the capital of the French-speaking Switzerland. Hey, CQ, great to have you on.
Hey, good afternoon, gentlemen. What's going on? What's up, SC? Thank you for the peekaboo answer there. Awesome, I love it. I love that it was you.
Yeah, I'll hold you to it.
I want to make something happen.
So no, you're just jumping on, but one of the questions and answers was about the boutiques. Terry Stern says they don't want any more boutiques. They also said, by the way, in the previous question, which you might find interesting, is that they're at the right number of dealers. The question was, you've significantly reduced the number of your retail outlets. Is the restructuring complete? And the answer from Terry Stern is yes. We now have around 280 dealers. This is in line with production volumes. There's no reason to further decrease or increase the number. Do you any commentary on that?
I think it makes sense. Even though I'm hearing that my old store in the Caribbean might be losing their Patek relationship, which is very, very interesting because they're a very, very big door, but I need to confirm that. But since the cuts back in a few years ago, I think they got the system exactly where they wanted it, with ADs that they liked, that they trusted, that had good relationships, that worked. Worked above board, or if they're not doing the right thing, you're not hearing about it, that type of situation. So it makes sense. They can sell all the watches they want to in the right areas that they want to keep getting that business going. So it makes sense to me. You don't need more ADs. You don't need more doors opening up for them.
Actually, I find it very interesting. If I can chime in real quick, in January 25, there were still 4. I don't want to big note myself here. I looked that up in preparation for this stream. So in the Caribbean in January 25, there were 4 points of sale. Now there are only 3. One is in St. Martin, Jules by Love, then Cayman Islands, Kirk Freeport Plaza, and then Saint Bartholomew or something. Another Patek Philippe boutique.
Yeah,
is yours among those three, if I may ask, or if you want to share?
No, so mine would have been the fourth, which would have been Little Switzerland in St. Thomas Virgin Islands. So that
right,
so that confirms that they're gone. And when I tell you we were one of the biggest ADs in this side of the hemisphere in terms of the amount of inventory we had in stock, I can show you pictures where I literally could open the catalog and I had everything. Everything except maybe a few high jewelry pieces. Nautilus, I have pictures with every Nautilus, every Aquanaut in the shelf. Come in, buy. Where are you? So it's very interesting that they got closed down, because I know that's a very deep relationship that goes back many, many years. So that's very interesting.
Yep. Alex is doing some interesting average math. It's tough when you do these averages because some dealers are way, way bigger than others, but just on average, each Patek AD receives around 250 pieces per year. So that's just simply the total annual production volume of 72,000 divided by 280 or whatever it is, and you get to a rough number. And for some it's 150, for some it's 350, for some it's 50, and for others it's 450. But basically, average is around 250. So that is about one watch every day, maybe a couple. But let's do it by week. It's like I don't know, 5 watches a week or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. But guys, I have a question. Look, for whatever Stern doing now, if he decide to increase the prices even in 100%. For the Patek collectors, how we say the Patek customer, I don't see him losing Patek customers that he already have. He might lose maybe in newbies, but people that already collect Pateks, already buy from him, I don't see them stop getting Patek.
That's the perplexing question, Marcelo, because something like a 6119 Calatrava, they don't seem to have any problem being selective about the people to whom they sell, but those watches, as soon as they're sold, appear in secondary for less, and over time, a lot of the grand complications, fall significantly in the secondary markets in value. So you could say like, hey, they don't seem to have a problem selling all their watches. True, but the $200,000 grand complication that they sell 1 year later is selling for $150,000. So how does that dynamic work when the people that are buying either are so rich that they don't care that the prices fall, or is there an endless supply of customers willing to pay retail for their watches that they just don't care?
Okay, I'm going to say my opinion, and please, guys, tell me if this makes sense. For the ones that already have relationship buying watches already gray market, that care about the value, I don't see the gray market segment changing drastically or collapsing the buyer. For example, if I buy a Patek or a Rolex for a certain price, it pretty much my relationship of selling the watch to that gray market dealer would be pretty much stable. I'm not going to lose suddenly 50% or 100% or things like that. So I see that very stable. Beside that, like I said, if I have a lot of money and I don't care, and I have a relationship, and I buy my Patek for 100% more in retail, even so that watch basically is peanuts on the back in the gray market, I don't care. Who care is actually who buy that watch in the gray market. It makes sense?
I don't know. Does anything you say ever make sense?
But
let's chime in real quick. 6119, for example, is the entry-level model that everyone who starts the journey is offered. It's comparable to the 5320, for example, if you start at a higher level. And both of these models have dropped significantly, as you so rightly said, OC. But they're also assigned to the brand and also to the authorized dealer that you mean business, that you put money where your mouth is, and you want to start your collecting journey. And once you've moved on, obviously these pieces go to the pre-owned market with pretty hefty discounts. But if you look at the 6119, for example, it has not dropped that drastically. If you look at the original list price, we're always comparing current list prices to the market levels. And if you look at the original price, they're not that far away. Many of those pieces are still around list. Take the 5212, for example, or even take the 5119. It was like a couple of years ago when it came out, it was at 25 K, and right now you might get it for 22, but that's not the huge drop that people are talking about. And therefore, why would a person even care? I would agree with Marcelo with the part that he said it's kind of stable, and it's not where people want to stop. And therefore, I think Patek can actually be very confident with the way even the so-called less sought after models are holding strong in the market. And look at this 6196P, for example. That's the next iteration of the more classical Calatrava. They will at a certain point in time discontinue this 6119 for the, in my opinion, for the yellow gold or rose gold or white gold 6196s, in order to not have two similar products in their lineup. And then those pieces will, if we look back at history, for example, my piece, the 5196, was at 9,000 euros when it came out. And now it's around 20, or of course you can buy it for around 14 or 15 as well right now. But it's in comparison, it's still very, very strong. It's not moving up significantly, but it's strong. So I actually would challenge those people who say, well, those pieces nobody likes them. Another person said, I mean, they will know who I mean if I say there's no such thing as Patek lovers. There are Patek lovers, and there are also people who are buying those pieces and still making sure that their pre-owned market prices are strong, even though they might not be the sought after sports pieces.
CQ, you want to weigh in here?
Yeah, I'd agree with SC. You know, when you really sit back and look at the market, Pateks on the straps, they don't lose that much value, and they've been the most stable out of many different categories, you know, since the COVID market, right? They didn't bounce up and they didn't drop to the depths, right? They kind of stayed where they are. I think, you know, the issue is there are Patek lovers, and true Patek lovers who are okay walking the journey and collecting from the brand. They never really looked at secondary market values before, and they're not too concerned with it now. I think if let's say there is 100% price increase, the biggest issue is that many people will just buy outside of the country, and that will create a pressure of what do you do to kind of help out the U.S. dealers. If the price goes that crazy, you're just paying your assistant to buy the watch for you, or you're just making an extra trip with your family, right? That's why people used to come to the Caribbean all the time, right? You know how many people, who it was so beautiful, because I was, 21, 22, so I'm really understanding life. And somebody's breaking down, listen, bro, I just brought the family down here. The kids are on the beach. Everybody's at the Ritz. I'm getting the Patek. You're not charging me sales tax on this. And I paid for half of this on points. And now I understand at 35, the smile that these clients would have on their faces, right? So people are going to travel for the watches. If let's say there was a big retail uptick, like people are going to find watches at the right prices, but there is a segment who doesn't care, and they'll just keep buying. But I think one thing, go ahead.
No, it's funny you mentioned that, because in this interview with Terry Stern, he is specifically asked, and he's asked about the topic of tariffs, and he said, he's asked, what happens if tariffs are high? Will Americans then buy their watches abroad? And Terry Stern says that's quite possible. Anyone who wants to buy a watch for 100,000 francs or more can book a flight, stay overnight in Geneva, and buy the watch there. It's cheaper than buying it at home. And then he goes on to kind
cheaper, but there's a lie here, and I'm going to tell you why. Because as everybody know that the boutiques usually they sell the watches for the locals only, and not for tourists. That's why American boutiques are actually safe, because they will not allow, especially on very specific pieces. Yeah.
Mm,
Mm,
What
I
if,
don't
but
think so.
what if he reduces the shipments to U.S. retailers? The next step part of his statement is the biggest losers would be U.S.
Mm.
retailers. One wonders whether President Trump wants to ruin companies in his own country.
mhm. Oh, yeah. So the thing is, right? If let's say I have a $10 million spend with Patek, right? And I have a big
Mm.
piece coming in and it's like $200,000 or something like that. And I'm like, listen, I don't want to accept this watch in X region. I would really appreciate if I could get it in X region. I do not think there will be much instances. There will for sure be instances of like, no, we can't do that. But I do think there will be many instances of, you know what? Let me make an email. Let me send an email. Let me see what we could do for you, sir. Depending the type of
Mm.
relationship and spend. For sure, though, that's going to be the exception and not the rule. But trust me, they will figure out a way to sell their watches. They will, I'm just telling you personally, I would do whatever gymnastics needed to make sure, sales would happen how they need to happen. You know what I mean? To make things happen. So trust me that no luxury brand is, even if they raise prices, they're not worried, because okay, we raised prices because we needed to make sense and blah blah blah. But for the heavy hitters aren't being affected. They're not even like sweating any of this situation.
Absolutely. Actually, it would be interesting to look behind the curtains, obviously. I want to go back just real quickly to what Wristwatcholic did, breaking it down to the different ADs. I mean, we know that the distribution works with different markets. For example, when Brian the Pipe got his 5960, I congratulated him and said that Yannick Michaud, the head of Patek Philippe in Germany, who started in the 90s and still works in that position, has the same watch, even though it has the black dial, but it's a very beautiful watch. Actually, these kinds of guys decide how many watches are allocated to the different ADs in their specific markets. And obviously, it's not a numbers game. And we've seen that with the Cubitus launch, that some of the ADs had all three models, the initial models right away. Others had two, others had just one. And it's similar to all the entire lineup. So it would be very interesting to find out, how they're actually doing it. Because obviously, a smaller AD in a weaker structured region gets less, but that's also not bad, because those who get a lot, like let's take Munich in comparison to a remote place, they also have a lot more buyers, and buyers with a lot deeper pockets. So it's a game for them, but or let's say it's something that they have to compute those different kinds of numbers, and that would be really interesting. So who's getting what?
Yeah,
But
and
one thing
also
that
going to.
yeah.
Sorry, I wanted to add on this also. Nobody asked that question, but does the service fee will increase as well? Just does the service will be affected on these tariffs
It
or all
shouldn't.
these things?
It shouldn't, because if I'm exporting a watch, if I'm exporting a
Mm.
watch for repair, there's going to be a temporary export. So like, it would be, yeah. So and all you're doing is repairing. So even if you are taking parts out and replacing parts, like
Yeah.
somebody would have to be a real, a-hole to try to find out how much the parts that were replaced were and give you a tariff just on those parts. So I don't think that would be a
Yes.
justifiable reason to increase service. And I do see, I think a big issue nobody's going to realize is the customs time is going to be insane. And DHL doing what they're doing now is just going to make it so much harder for FedEx. The clog of getting a watch internationally is going to be insanity with
And,
DHL doing what they're doing now. It's going to be really crazy.
For those of you who are not aware, DHL has basically put in place a restriction on all business to consumer shipments coming into the United States with a value of $800 or more. So if it's a business shipping to a consumer in the United States, if the value of that item is over $800, there's no more shipping at all. They're not taking any shipments at all because of the delay going on with processing and customs.
Yeah.
And also, see, regarding buying watches overseas, usually you care about I'm going to put the paper aside because paper is very easy to pass through, but the box, if you come with a whole brand new watch with a box, you're going to pay in there, I mean, you cannot smuggle a watch, especially when we're talking 100K over,
Yeah. And I know dealers don't like to sell to customers who aren't local, but in many cases, if the watch is a hard to sell watch, ladies' piece or entry level collar trap, and they have them there, they will sometimes waive those requirements and sell to non-locals to move the pieces. So
for sure. Brands will get creative. This is going to be a very, very interesting time because I think it's going to get very old school very quickly of like how brands are going to work to move their product. A lot of these brands are like publicly traded companies. A lot of these brands have big investors behind them. Very few are nice and cozy like Patek. Patek is actually the coziest one, right? Where it's like, and Rolex, where it's their money, it's all tied up. Like they can kind of do what they want. Plus they have the buyers. It's like the Richemont Group brands, the Swatch Group brands that are right now, might be calling, their gray market guys like, hey, maybe we open up the old channels and we start like, I'm telling you, because like the economy in the US, it's it is what it is. It's shaky. There's so much uncertainty. Gold is rising crazy. The dollar is weakening, and these brands are going to be crazy, and they're going to raise retail prices.
Insane. You're going to start getting a lot of phone calls. Listen, I have the watch and papers only.
Oh yeah, no. Oh, for sure. Trust me. Listen. When the 41% Swiss tariff was rumored, I already I dreamed of a beautiful black market import business. I'll say it here. And I was already building my mansion. I already had it built. I already had I had servants, and I'm like, oh my God, such a gift. I'll do it for 3 years and I'll disappear. But oh my God, I'd be like, I was there. I planned it out. But unfortunately, so if they do come back, if the tariffs do come back and I disappear, we got to delete this episode. Just note that down.
That's right. St. Peter with a flamingo blue highlighted comment. Thank you very much. Terry Stern is questioning President Trump's trade war is fighting words. Thank you, St. Peter. Let's get back to the exclusive interview with Terry Stern that was conducted by NZZ. We've got the exclusive on it. Nobody else is covering it. Not a single publication is covering it. Not a single YouTube channel is covering it. We've got it right here for you guys. Question to Terry Stern: since Bucherer became part of Rolex, have you been working more closely or less closely with Bucherer? Terry's answer: our collaboration hasn't changed. We only work with Bucherer in a few locations, including 3 stores in the United States. What Rolex does with Bucherer doesn't directly affect us, nor do we have an agreement to open new stores together in the future or to operate Patek and Rolex boutiques in parallel. It's funny that that he brings that up because people here in the United States have noticed that certain retailers have been opening Patek and Rolex boutiques in parallel. It's happened multiple times. It happened in Boston, where Longs was selected by both Rolex and Patek to open new boutiques. It happened in San Francisco with Bucherer Tourneau actually closing there and Kearns being selected to open up new Rolex and Patek boutiques there. And I believe it happened somewhere else, but also like Gary's also recently opened up a new Rolex boutique. But there are places where they're opening new Patek and Rolex boutiques side by side, operated by the same retailer, and he's saying that there is no agreement to do that. That
That's
just happens
actually
to
it.
be a coincidence.
That's actually it. He says nor do we have an agreement, which means that they are actually communicating, and obviously, and and the way the entire interview is constructed with this very positive introduction, and the way those answers are given, that actually leads me to believe that a lot of those questions were almost planted, and therefore it's a way for him to get that out to the world, because he knows that people have been talking about that, and he wants to show them that there is no danger. Many of those answers to those questions are like injecting calmness into the public. That's what I think what he wants to project. Where we got this. Don't be scared. Prices, all those different things that you might have on your mind. Don't worry, we got you. There's a bright future. Trust us.
What really people want to ask, which they haven't been asking, is okay. A Rolex bought Bucherer. Do you ever think about getting directly into retail or going more direct? That's the question that I think he hasn't really been pointedly asked, and I'm not sure how he would answer that.
Well, he's been asked maybe in every second interview in the past, and he's always declined. Does it mean that he actually doesn't think about it? No, not at all, because he's done things that he said he wouldn't do and then changed his mind. But in my opinion, he's not going to do it because it wouldn't be similarly profitable like AP, because he has a different structure and he has different.
Okay, I have a better question. What happened if the tariffs getting coming on, the prices increase the way? No. Let's say that this tariffs going to come, the prices increase the way that we're talking about, and let's say Trump create this amazing miracle and all the tariffs drop down and it become basically regarding the propaganda that he's talking about. And let's say it become true, it happened. What happened then? I mean, does the people that bought the watches for that super expensive prices, do they get hurt? I mean, does they create a problem in the market? What happened then?
A good rhetorical question. Hey, by the way, Ghost of Yiddish Gambino asks in the chat, and this was something that you were just discussing, CQ. What do you make of DHL suspending all the shipments for B2C customers over $800 in value? And we just talked about that. CQ is already lining up a massive black market operation.
Empire, baby. I'm ready. I was gonna type the answer, but it's very bad, right? Most of your micro brands who are shipping directly to you, they're using DHL. DHL works wonderfully in a lot of international areas where FedEx and things like that might be a little bit slower. They also work as different entities. For instance, in Dubai, DHL is I think it's like RMX or something. So they do everything is there, even though you don't think it's DHL, it's DHL. So this is going to really be tough because all these businesses know how to figure out new logistics. They have to work with new partners. They have to work new discounts for their shipping. And then your FedEx, your UPS, and your whoever else, they're not going to be super clogged with volume that they weren't expected. And it's great for their business, but it's bad because now they need to train people, all the new systems. On top of all of this, which is the bigger issue, is now customs themselves are now inspecting things way more than they ever. For instance, I usually get a watch from Hong Kong within 2 days. It took me 8 days to get a simple watch, one watch from Hong Kong. So it's like, so like, and if the domino effect is, if the client wasn't a giving client and understood the situation, the domino of like, me not doing that deal, I had to get that watch shipped from another place, to this, and then it starts with the shipping, but the customs and everything and the time delays, it really will make it a headache. So this is the bigger thing, which will go into repairs and everything. Just shipping itself will just take much longer than it should.
It's a headache
Right,
on
but
multiple
okay.
levels because the secondary market is predicated on a couple of different value propositions. One of them is super convenience, right?
Yes.
Like I want the watch tomorrow or the next day. If I wire you today, I'll get it tomorrow. And the second is there's also a calmness or a sense of satisfaction and safety knowing that the system operates super fast. Like I'm about to wire you a lot of money. And I'm going to know really, really quick whether or not I've been scammed or not, like because I'm going to get that watch tomorrow. And if the second you start saying, "Oh, well, it's delayed," things are slow, you'll get it in 8 days. They start to raise a lot more red flags. Because not that it's the secondary dealer's fault, but it's just that the speed at which it operates provides a sense of calm to the gray dealers. And once you remove that, I think it raises a lot of concern about doing business that way, where you wire money and wait 8 days instead of 1.
Yes, it was a very scary situation because I haven't been in that situation in a very, very long time, and usually it's because somebody accidentally shipped in a crocodile strap or something like that. So when it was truly you're calling them, they know where the package is. Yes, we have all your papers. You're just in line, and you're doing that for like a week straight, calling them, and it's like you're seeing that happen with so many different people now. It's going to be tough, and you're right. People don't know how the inventory works, right? On the secondary market, there's a ton in domestically, but there's a ton that comes in every day internationally, right? You think about the 1916 company. When I was there, we had Hong Kong, Dubai, Singapore. So we had so much. Saudi Arabia, two Switzerland offices. Watches were moving hundreds of thousands, like all over every day. So when you stop that and when you halt a lot of watches coming in, it just is going to make for a weird situation because you're going to have dealers who are going to start raising prices up, and you're going to have a lot of bad situations of people promising watches and not being able to deliver watches. So yes, it's not a good situation. Nobody is enjoying this part of the game for sure. Forget the pricing, but it's the pricing, present delay, present uncertainty. Who are you dealing with? It's not a fun time.
All right, let's keep going with the interview. Exclusive Terry Stern interview. Here we go. You launched the Cubitus collection in October. What was the response? And Terry Stern's answer: all 3 models are a huge success, and interestingly enough, all over the world. Did you expect any different answer?
No, it's like you asking the chef that produced the cake, hey, does your cake is good? I know it's a piece of shit. I put the salt a little bit instead of sugar. Come on,
it's delicious. Did you expect?
Let's not get sidetracked. But Marcelo, do you consider the Cubitus a piece of S?
No, because I am in this kind of reality that I know is impossible. I know where I'm standing. But
just as a watch, as a proposition, do you think it's a bad watch?
Look, I think it's a nice watch. I mean, I actually didn't have the chance even to see it in person yet, and Japan is tough. I am located here in Japan. The gray market here is ridiculous. It's huge. I mean, they are on companies that they own 20 or 30 stores all over Japan. And these multiple companies like this. The market is ridiculous here. The retail is, I guess, like in America, is empty. I mean, you probably need to be a celebrity or something to even to have a sitting and a meeting. I did okay with Rolex only. I mean, I had a chance with that, and I am pretty much okay with what I have. I mean, even new Rolex I cannot get no more. So because they changed the management, and it's crazy. It's tough. I don't know. It's the funny thing that I can say here in Japan is that Grand Seiko actually is way cheaper here than what is in Europe and in the States. So I do see a lot of, especially on Seikos and Grand Seikos, I see a lot of watch tourism. I'm not going to say watch tourism to buy Rolex or Patek, but I see a lot, especially on Grand Seiko.
Well, if we go back to the way the question was phrased, what was the response? He actually says all three models are a huge success. And you also mentioned the way it was like processed in the market monetarily, or the way demand actually definitely outstretched the supply. But obviously the interviewer wanted to dig a little bit deeper into the way it was received in general, and he was pointing to the fact that there were a lot of mixed reviews. But again, I still feel that I still want to talk to a person that really hates that watch, very very using arguments against one another. I still feel I haven't really had the chance to talk to a person that really doesn't like that watch. Why? And obviously, Thierry Stern takes it or speaks from a CEO perspective and says we're selling all of them, and that's clear. But the interviewer didn't get the answer that he actually wanted.
Did you expect these models to be a huge success? I thought the watches might be a bit large for Japan, but no, it works very well. Sales are fantastic. Now we're introducing two smaller models that should appeal to both men and women. The new size is called medium. Will there be an even smaller version later? Terry's answer, that's still open. We don't want to rush things. 5 models are already a good starting point. We'll analyze things before deciding how to proceed. One thing is certain, there will be more Cubitus models.
Boom. Roasted.
Yeah, guys, look, it's the same thing. We all want a Nautilus that basically is a 40 millimeter, right? But if somebody called me today and offer me a Nautilus 37 millimeter, you think I'm going to say no? But it's not really the watch that I was dreaming of. But of course, I'm going to take it because it's there for retail. So it's the same thing, I mean, basically, it control you. He basically control you.
You're comparing apples to tires. I mean, it's a different model.
Yeah, sales are fantastic. Of course, they're fantastic. They've only been trickling in over the past 6 months. They're not flooding into the market, which is good. You see them on secondary occasionally, but not very many, and they're all over retail. So they're doing sales. I wouldn't say sales are fantastic. I would say that sales are, as the strategy of putting out a limited number of watches is working, definitely, and they should continue to do that. They should continue to make it very desirable.
It's kind of funny that he says sales are fantastic, because it's clear that he only puts out as many or less than are desired, and that was always the plan. So to say sales are fantastic, implying that 100% of them are sold, I mean, that's a given.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to give you guys a challenge. How much is the percentage of this Patek to be 100% handmade? Or how many percentage is actually handmade?
That's okay. We can't go there. We can't go there. Listen, I don't even want to sound like I'm defending it. But Patek never said that they were handmade. It's like a lot of people like, oh, Rolex does, I saw somebody saying like Rolex does this and this by hand, and it's like they never said that. They just charge you a lot of money.
The CNC machine is handmade.
Yeah, exactly. They're all robots. They never say. They never say, hey, the Sky Dweller was done, but no, never one word. We produce beautiful watches. We make sure that, and same thing with Patek. They say, hey, when we service it, we make sure. And listen, they do a lot of things, but when in today's world, handmade, Grupo 4C exists. We know what true handmade watches are. So it's very, I don't even want to throw that ball at them,
Don't allow Marcelo to try to sidetrack you here, because it's, I mean, what is he really asking? It's similar to someone saying, "Oh, Rolex is just mainstream." Yes, that means that the mainstream, meaning everyone, wants that watch. So you having to explain your special Vacheron Constantin to someone means that nobody cares. So what is that dig actually? So if you're saying how much is handmade, like you said, right, to said secure, no one said that, but we're buying watches for numerous reasons. One of them being a certain level of like manufacturer craftsmanship, finesse, and so on. But there are other aspects about it. So the whole question is loaded, and just
no, you're absolutely right. The reason I mentioned this is to call the bullshit that basically it can produce. It cannot say, we can make only 50,000 Nautilus a year. No, you can actually make 500,000 if you want.
No. Marcelo, I have never obviously been to to the production lines of a Nautilus bracelet, but I have read quite a few articles or comments of people who had the chance. One of them being Tommaso, by the way, of having had the chance to really witness how those bracelets are manually finished, and it takes a lot of time. You cannot compare it to Rolex. It's a completely different world, and I wouldn't say anything.
Of course.
All right,
but they still don't reveal the production. I mean, they do.
I think they have a lot. They definitely have production capability to do a lot of different things, and whether they can is one question. But I think the beauty about Patek, why I love them, is they know they shouldn't, and they really work on curating their collection. And since I've worked with them from day one, it's always been about curating the collection. So because they were making money before the Nautilus. They were making money while people kind of like the Nautilus. This Nautilus hype, is within like 10, 12 years, is supreme. Everything needs to go. I still remember you could walk in and buy an Aquanaut. Travel time only. White dial Nautilus, I could have gave you 2 at one time if I had it. If you wanted it for you and your friend, if I had it, I would. Just does the card swipe, sir? Did the wire hit, sir? That's all. That was the only question. If you want, I needed your name because the warranty needs a name. But beyond that, who cares? So this is also relatively new, right? And I think they just don't care the money's coming in from so many ways. Like no reason to just make a bunch of different just knowledge all day. There's no need. But I do think there was an important thing that OC said maybe 15 minutes ago about the grand complications not holding what they used to hold on the market. I think that is one interesting marker that I've been watching, because for a long time the grand comps have always done very, very strong. So to see the split second being offered a little bit easier, you're hearing a lot of people being able to get it, and seeing it being less than 100,000 retail on the market, shows you that the pool of collectors are definitely getting thinned in terms of people who are appreciating grand comps for what they should be appreciated for versus, hey, if I just get this is just a big amount in my spend, and it's going to make me just leapfrog a bunch of people.
But maybe we just have to look a little bit further down the line of the timeline, because if you look at the 3970 market or a 3940 market, that has become a lot stronger, and with a certain time lag, it might happen to different models as well. I mean, the 5970 has had its moment already, and it's still pretty strong. So yeah, but I think you meant outside of the real flagship models, right? But
exactly. Just outside of the main flagship thing. But again, I think we're gonna look back in 5 to 10 years, and this is just it'll just be like a blip in the Patek history. Things will kind of figure itself out, and this period that we're in right now. I understand being in his position of hey, let's drop a Cubitus, let's get people off the Nautilus a little bit. Let's get people a little bit confused, because honestly, this is not what you're here for anyways. Let's shake out a few people while still making money, because just like Rolex, left or right, they're printing money. So it doesn't really matter what they do.
One thing I want to add is that I'm sure that that Thierry Stern and everyone within his leading circle, they're watching the effect or the development that you were pointing out right now very closely as well. They're looking at the secondary market very closely, and I believe that Patek, above all of the other brands, are adjusting their production numbers accordingly. So if they see there's a 40, 50, 60% drop on the secondary market, they will just pump the brakes on the production. And if you are wealthy enough to buy such a piece, especially now at the discount that it can be had in the secondary market right now, and then you move on like 10, 15 years, you will do very good, because they will always protect you as a collector, and they are doing that on every level, which I find very nice and interesting about that brand.
Yeah, I agree. Patek is one brand where right now, if you have the capital and you have the risk tolerance, you could buy up a lot of fun, funky watches, and in 10, 15 years, you won't really lose that much. 3940 is a great example of it. It's like the prices just slowly keep on creeping up, and you won't lose it. You won't lose much. You won't gain much. And maybe John Mayer will talk about your reference and it pops off, but you won't really lose as if you, let's say you went head over heels for JLC or Breguet or 100 other brands, where if you collected 15 of those watches in 15 years, the value is zero because they're not even liquid, you know?
Nobody knows with these brands.
No, there's really and it's a sad part, because I just see all these new brands and the retail pricing that they're charging. And I just remember Patek being the one brand that had wacky pricing to me. Like when I was in my store and there was all these brands, I was like, damn, Patek seems a little aggressive. But it made sense because you could look at the auction results, and we had a little binder that we pull out. And that's how I'd sell you. I show you the watch. You're like, oh my gosh, it's expensive. Sir, here's a Heineken. Here's a whiskey. I'm going to sit you down for a half hour and just go over auction result and auction result and auction result. And then you'd be like, oh, okay, I should buy this watch. There's not many other brands that you could do that with. And I think that's tough, because they're selling you watches for 20 grand. They're selling you that IWC ceramic on a bracelet for like 20 grand. And it's like, in 15 years, who's paying you that? I remember the Panerai PAM 438 Tutanero, all ceramic, retail was around 16,000. I used to sell in the 20s. I can buy that watch right now for $8,500. And that was a watch I had people chasing me to buy above retail. Chasing me. 8,500. 8,500.
People might ask, what's keeping Patek from going down the same route? The answer is history. If you look at if you look at like decades into the past, obviously, it hasn't always been that way for Patek as well. If you look at the 80s, for example, one thing that I admire Philippe Stern so much for is that in the beginning, obviously, he faked it to make it, so to speak. So he had his auction results, and then he, in the beginning, I read a book that actually admits, that the author admits, and he worked with Philippe Stern, so it's actually, it appears to be true, that they withheld some current production 3970s, for example, in order to make it rarer. And then in the beginning, they kind of faked it to make it, and then it really got traction, and they had momentum. And then, it spun off into the situation that we have today. But if you take the entire package, we've been saying that a couple of times, then it's never comparable to any brand like Panerai or Frédéric Constant or all the brands that had their short, or let's say they're a couple of years, because we're talking about hundreds of years right here.
Yeah, it's just a different ball game, and you really, and I remember first hearing those stories of them going to auctions, and like at first I was like, oh, is that a negative thing or a positive thing? And now you see how overwhelmingly positive it was for them to make sure certain pieces performed at certain numbers at the auction, to make sure that they weren't overproducing. And many times, I don't have a short list on me, but many times a reference came out. There was like an oversized Calatrava. Darn, it's I forgot the reference, but it came out. I thought it was such a cool watch. Next year, discontinued. Right? Because they know what they're doing. They take care of their collectors. It seems weird, but like to me, they're the one brand that's telling you upfront, hey, we want all your money. I want everything you got. But hey, we're gonna make you feel good about it. We're gonna keep the romance, and we're also gonna make sure that you see that we're taking care of your investment. You know, and no other brand I've ever seen have that 360 approach for sure.
Right, it's like the one cool guy that everybody wants to show up at the party, and if he says I'm not showing up, then people care. If another guy who's like, I feel bad for choosing any kind of brand, but you could pick a brand that you know is kind of weak and is trying to punch above its weight, but really can't. If I don't want to say it, but for example, Omega. I have to say it. Because I have heard certain stories about the brand Omega, for example. Sometimes they are approaching retailers with a very, very, let's say, overly confident position of saying we actually have to cover that much space in your building and so on, and that's going to backfire in my opinion. So if someone like that says at a certain point in time when the retailers have had it and is really upset, when the times change, and when he says I'm not going to show up to the party, no one will even say, well, then they don't show up. They won't say anything, because he might have rendered himself irrelevant. I'm not saying Amiga is going out of business anytime, but I'm just saying that some of the brands are trying to leverage with more than they have actually kind of an impact on the market, and Patek has one of the best positions.
Look,
in that
Omega would
regard,
be much more collectible.
Just like Rolex.
Look, Omega would be much more collectible if they wouldn't make 72 different variations of Seamaster and 1,000,002 different variations of Speedmasters.
Well,
okay.
That's one of many aspects.
I agree with you, but the problem is they'd have to figure out how to sell a new watch. And I think it's very evident in this industry. Nobody wants to try to sell a new watch. You know, look at what we did to Patek for the Cubitus. You know, crucified. So nobody. So for Omega, like I think you're right, and I think you make a great point, SC, as well, with the relationship with how these brands work with dealers and how they do. You know, a brand like Omega says, "Hey, man, I want to work with you." You kind of have to listen to what they say. You don't listen to the same way that you listen to a Rolex or Patek, but depending where you are, like let's say if I started a store right now, if I could land a brand like Omega, it's easy for me to land so many others. It's really like Rolex, like in an imaginary world, I landed Rolex as an AD. Then all the other brands line up and I get to move differently with them. But on the same side, Rolex will tell me the square footage. They're going to tell me who I'm going to order my construction. They're going to tell me who I need to fly out from Switzerland. I managed a store in Alaska, and it was absolutely brutal to see people come to a small store in Southeast Alaska, a small store, I don't know the square footage, but not a big store, and say, okay, we want to do a shop here. We want to do a shop here. The store is only open for 5 months. We're shipping furniture from Switzerland. We're flying guys in from Switzerland to build the more. And I'm just like, yo, like this is like 300,000-400,000 build out. The store is closed for 6-7 months. What are we doing here? And of course, the brand leaves the next year. Gone. Contract ended. I don't want to say the brand, but a very, very big brand. And another big brand did that with another deal I worked with, and millions of dollars spent. So much money. Build this out this way. No, redo it. Paint it this way. No, everybody needs to have the same suit. Everybody needs to have a certain tie. As soon as the build out is finished, you know what? I think, we're just gonna sell it our own. We're doing so good with consumers, and even though you helped us build the brand to where it is, and you did so much sacrificing, and you just, you did what you got to do.
Yeah,
but gone.
Here's the thing. So Omega is more flexible, but if you go Tag Heuer or Zenith, they will give you the world. I mean,
but also, right? Even with somebody like a Zenith or a Tag Heuer, right? It's like you go with them, and then they start out nice. They give you the sexy watches. They're giving you the Monacos. They're giving you the Carreras, and then they're like, "Hey, we'd really love if you had 30 to 40% of your showcase with Formula Ones. We're really pushing the Formula Ones, and we'd really love if you had the Formula Ones." And then you're like, "Hey, in my market, Formula Ones are the worst seller." And they're like, "Yeah, but if you don't take the Formula Ones, maybe we don't send you anything." Not saying Tag does this,
so even they come with demands. Wow.
Listen.
Wow.
I'll only speak about the experience I have. So I'll talk about Breitling with that same store in Alaska. When Breitling rolled out the BO1s, they wanted over 40% of your collection to be Chronomat 01s, right? So at a certain point, when my best sellers are things under 6,000, Avengers, Super Oceans, Galactics, things like that. They're like, "No, we need you to order and make sure your showcase has 40 to 50% 01 movements. And of that, a large percent needs to be chronomats." So it's like, all of a sudden, I need to have $9,000 watches when I'm telling you, hey, I can sell these $4,000, $5,000 watches. Like, the more you ship, the more you sell. And you're like, yeah, well, I made a big investment to manufacture these in-house movements for no reason, because somebody said, and because you're the dealer and I have the leverage, I'm going to force you to recoup my investment, right? And that's the problem. Is like a lot of these brands have that type of relationship with the dealers. So that's why when you see so many of them pull back from these brands, a lot of the brands are like really taken aback, or the dealers are like really taken aback. And of course, you jump to work with a Rolex or a Patek, because even though they're going to put you through all this headache, the money comes. You know what I mean? The money comes. So it's worth it. It's worth the headache. But if you're going to make me go through all of that and then one day just show up and say, hey, thanks for everything, but I'm gone. And I've just seen it happen many times where it's like after millions have been spent in hopes of millions more being made, and they're just like, okay, see you later. It's really crazy.
Good stuff. Let's get back.
Surprise.
Let's get back to the interview with Thierry Stern. We have the exclusive on the interview, so let's get back to that.
Before we do that, actually, you've been, while we were talking, you were doing beautiful producing in the background with all the.
Thank you.
Very nice.
And actually, at the moment, there are 60 people watching and only 37 upvotes. Do you think we can go do better than that? Maybe even top 40 at that point?
I think we get 40 guys. 40 upvotes, guys. Let's do 40 likes. If you just joined the live stream, we've got the exclusive interview with Thierry Stern. Let's go to the next question. So we covered.
I'm going to go before I have to prepare for tennis. So thank you guys for having me, and I'll see you guys later.
Marcelo, always a pleasure. Thank you for stopping by. If someone wants to replace Marcelo's spot on the panel, I'll drop the link. It's also pinned at the top of the chat. Patek Philippe owners, feel free to jump on the panel if you have a Patek Philippe. And by the way, I'm proud to say that a massive proportion of the audience actually does. We're not haters. We actually, if you look, SE and myself are owners of Patek Philippe. In the audience, I can see Kelso's an owner, Patek Chris is an owner, Diego M is an owner. It's like our audience is full of people who actually own and love Patek Philippe. So unlike other live streams that it's just filled with trolls and nonsense and garbage, we actually have real collectors here. Speaking of real collectors, let's get back to the interview and let's talk about, here we go. Steel versus gold. So the question is, okay. The new size is called medium. Will there be an even smaller version? He's talking about the Cubitus. That's still open. We don't want to rush things. 5 models are already a good starting point. We'll analyze things before deciding how to proceed. One thing is certain, there will be more Cubitus models. And here's where we go into the whole sports watch discussion. At the same time, here's the question. You reduced the Nautilus and the Aquanaut. The Cubitus, Terry Stern's answer, the Cubitus, along with the Nautilus and Aquanaut, is part of our sports watch collection. We have a limit for this line that we don't want to exceed. So if we add Cubitus models, we have to reduce the size elsewhere. Okay, so this is kind of interesting because we actually did the calculations on this in a previous interview. Terry Stern and his marketing people said that they allocate 30% of production. They have a cap of 30% of production on sports pieces, and that includes the Nautilus, Aquanaut, and Cubitus line. So that works out to approximately 21,000 pieces annually. So the more Cubitus models that come out, the more production there is. They will reduce Aquanaut and Nautilus production to stay under that 21,000 unit per year cap. And he pretty much says it right here, even though he's not sharing the numbers here. We actually know the numbers based on information from previous interviews. Why especially the popular steel versions? So that's a follow-up question. Why, if you're going to eliminate the Nautilus and the Aquanaut, why are you eliminating the popular steel versions? And Terry Stern's answer, which is comical, we have to limit steel production compared to gold. It's a question of profitability. We can't maintain our structure with too many steel models. Moreover, we have already produced a large number of the affected models. Discontinuing them also serves to protect our customers. Those who invest in Patek should be able to count on long-term value retention.
Right. And here is where the difference between Audemars Piguet and Patek becomes apparent, because they could obviously increase their steel production, and they're doing it across different model lines, obviously. But when it comes to their real icons, they're holding back. And of course, there are a lot of pieces on the secondary market at the moment. But they seem to have found their bottom, and it's a pretty high bottom if you ask me. If you look at the original retail price, and that shows that he's right with that. Success proves him right.
What do you make of this CQ? Number one, he first starts to give a standard answer about, like, hey, we need to focus on gold because if we do too much steel, it impacts our profitability. But that's just like, it's laughable considering how much gross margin there is in these watches. I mean, it's a cash grab. It's like, listen, we're going to make more gold watches because we make 4x margin when we make a gold watch versus making a steel watch, right?
I think what he's saying is, in the ethos of Patek Philippe, in the historical standards, steel has always been a very, very limited part of their production, very, very small. So they never wanted to be in a world. The same thing, like you look at Journe, it's platinum rose gold. Platinum rose gold. With the sports pieces, you get some stuff, but it's platinum rose gold. And I think that's what he's trying to say here is like, we want to keep the structure of how our brand is, because that is our profitability. The profitability of Patek Philippe is me being, when I was a Patek Philippe SA, being able to say, that's just how Patek just does it this way. This is just the way. It's kind of a thing that you want to keep there. So if you make too much steel watches, you kind of, like, as he's saying, you kind of start looking at AP and you see the situation that they're in. And if I'm Patek, I'm always looking at AP and I'm always making sure I'm doing quite the opposite. So I definitely understand that. I think you're right in terms of like raw numbers. Of course, the margin doesn't matter if they're making it out of meteorite, platinum, or whatever. The upcharge is the upcharge. But I think he means more so like, go ahead.
No, I think the real answer is the second half of his answer, where he says, listen, we produced a lot of steel Nautiluses in the past. Enough is enough. It's like, listen, yeah. Like 4 years ago, he said, listen, we're getting rid of the 5711. Why? Because listen, that model was out for a long time. We made too many of them. We don't want that model to be closely personified with the brand. We want the people who bought those things for the value of that watch to appreciate, and that's it. It's done.
Going back to the example of the cool guy that everyone wants to have at the party, and his every move is watched. Imagine the 6196P that just came out. If they produce one piece in steel for only watch auction, and they're gonna say for a fact we're never gonna produce a 6196A again. What do you think? What kind of number that would bring at an auction? Even if it's just an entry level piece and it's just a very simple piece and so on, they can always they have all those different options in their arsenal, which is what makes them so strong. Because so many other brands come up with such amazing things, and you really have to they're jaw dropping, but so many people don't care. So going back to that. I think that's what also makes Patek very unique in that regard.
Yep. Let's keep going. Interesting. These answers are getting interesting. Let's see here. Is the simple, wow, this is a very pointed question. Is the simple 3-hand Nautilus made of steel, which still fetches several times its list price on the secondary market, finally history? And the answer, according to Terry Stern, we've currently replaced it with a gold model, but that doesn't mean it's gone forever. A break makes sense. Also, to calm the market.
No.
And that's him actually. To expand on that question, what an auction piece like a Calatrava in steel nowadays would bring, he can actually play with us, and that's so amazing because he's basically saying it's not going to come like anytime soon, but it will come. We will decide, and he's dangling that price in front of us to an extent that it appears reachable at a certain point. So it's reachable enough for us not to lose interest, but on the other hand, it's not as closely within reach, so that we lose interest again. If you know what I mean. So that's the ultimate leverage that he has.
It's something that could take years. Right.
Oh, maybe 8 years. That's something that you could draw out. Not 8 years. I'd say within the next 5 years, by 2030, there'll be something, or maybe a few references out there. But man, he's playing such a long game, and he's probably enjoying so much the leverage. Like as he said,
he will enjoy every year being asked the same question.
Yep.
Well, so do you think it's time for the steel Nautilus to make a return? Well, it's on a break right now, but never say never. But listen, there's no need for it right now. We've got other models.
He might keep it for bad times, but on the other hand, it might be important for him to be savvy enough to not to allow it to become the Rolex Coke, if you know what I mean. If the question is beat to death, at a certain point, I mean it's a bad comparison because the Rolex Coke is too similar to the Pepsi and all the other GMTs and so on, and the Nautilus is such an icon. But on the other hand, like CQ said before, I can also remember a time when the Nautilus and Royal Oak comparisons, those were pretty much on the same level, and people were were still kind of undecided on whether the Nautilus design was really nice or whether it was kind of dated and really reminded them of the 70s or something. And now it's kind of out of the question. Everyone loves it, so it's not that far in the past. And what I mean by that is that you have to be careful to choose the point wisely, to inject interest into the brand again, but not to dangle it long enough for people to kind of say, oh, now it won't ever come out, and let's move on to something else. If something more interesting really comes into the market.
Essie, that's so crazy. I do not know the last time that somebody that used to be a conversation, Royal Oak versus Nautilus. And like, wow, I don't know the last time. That's a crazy thought exercise. I don't know the last time somebody has seriously asked me that question. Where 5-6 years ago, that was the question, right? Is the Nautilus a little too thin? The Royal Oak is a little bit thicker. The bracelet's a little bit more beefier. It was a lot. The conversation was a lot about the bracelet. Wow, my brain is like on fire right now because I literally haven't had that thought of Nautilus versus Royal Oak in so long, and that was a very serious question. I remember holding, okay, I'm gonna hold a Patek for you. I'll hold a Royal Oak. Think about it overnight, and now, you know, wow, that's not even near a galaxy of a question. If somebody offered you a Royal Oak or Nautilus, what do you pick? That's insane.
Yeah, right. Goes to show you how our tastes actually develop. And it's also kind of funny. I mean, it's been a topic that has been digested on the streams in the last couple of weeks. Why we like certain models. I mean, certain people just kind of happen to love a model that happens to be so sought after, and there is a direct connection. I mean, you can look at all the different models that used to be so sought after 3-4 years ago, and now can be had, but no one's buying them. So you really have to be honest with yourself. There is a connection between accessibility, or on the other hand, exclusivity, and how much you like a watch, and we are easily deceived. Or we kind of deceive ourselves, or we tell ourselves a story that we just like it for the design. If we are honest with ourselves, we cannot ignore the allure that also comes with exclusivity.
And I think an interesting exercise or an interesting question is when Terry Stern strategically wanted to reduce the reliance on the Nautilus because he didn't want Patek Philippe to be so closely associated with one collection, because it was so hype, by discontinuing the steel and doing it the way that he did by coming out with a green dial and then coming out with the Tiffany edition and then finally getting rid of the steel, then coming out with a 5811 in white gold. Did it actually increase, not the importance of the Nautilus within Patek Philippe, but did it actually increase the Nautilus's stature in the industry by doing it that way?
Oh, ooh, that's a very, very good question.
And do you think that if the answer is yes, do you think he actually he didn't intend it, but do you think he's happy with that result?
Yes.
I mean, because now more than ever, it's about how the hell do I get a Nautilus?
And to expand on that, I'm sure, I'm absolutely positive that he planned that, and to even expand on that. Had he moved the Nautilus into precious metal only for infinity, he would have done the Cubitus a disservice, because that would have always remained the second best option, so to speak. Because it's very, very similar to the Nautilus, and people who are buying the Cubitus and do not have a Nautilus might be confronted with a claim that they didn't make it to get a Nautilus. Now that he's saying there will be at a certain point in time when the market has settled and when he sees fit, he's going to come out with a steel Nautilus again. He really established the Cubitus as 1/3 of the offering that they're going to be giving in the next future, which is taking away of the iconics, not the iconic status, but of the overly hyped status that the Nautilus has gotten by at this point. But if he had stayed within precious metal and made it completely unattainable, that would have created a huge disbalance in the sports line offering, by saying that, he's taking a little bit of that, I wouldn't say desirability, but a little bit of that unattainability of the Nautilus away again, and therefore created a more balanced push, but it's a very strong push forward, in my opinion.
Patek Chris is in the chat, says, I'm wearing the Nautilus right now. I wish we were all wearing a Nautilus, but we aren't. Let's continue on with the follow-up question here. You're talking about a break. Can fans hope for a remake? And the answer from Terry Stern, I'm surprised nobody's talking about this interview. It just came out a couple of days ago. The answer is absolutely. A steel Nautilus in the style of the 5711 will be available again at some point as a new model. What form, whether with engraving or with a new movement, is open. I'm by no means banning steel, but we've reached an economically limited quota. Therefore, we had to set priorities. And I think something that he may be talking about or referring to is, let me show you this. There was a steel, I believe this is a steel 5711 that was introduced in November of last year as a piece unique and offered up for auction, and it was hand engraved, but this I believe is steel. Let me see here. 5711 15A. So yeah, it's an entirely stainless steel 5711, a one-off that's completely hand engraved. So it's interesting that he specifically, Terry Stern, in his answer mentions right here, says, well, what form, whether engraving or a new movement, like so it must have been on his mind that, hey, they did this model in steel, and that people were asking him, hey, like, why did you do that in steel? Does that mean you can make more models in steel? But it's he leaves it open, but he does say a steel Nautilus in the style of the 5711 will be available again at some point as a new model.
CQ, I think you can attest to that or say whether it's true or not. If I'm not mistaken, Patek is still giving or is still selling 5711s in the off catalog like range with special kind of gem setting and so on. So it's not that; it's just that as a production model, like this entry level piece that.
Yeah, for sure. I can't say with 1,000% certainty, but I'm pretty sure there's still 5711 ruby pieces, and emerald pieces and stuff like that were already in production. Or because remember, there's nothing that says they have to stop, right? So it wouldn't make sense for them to then make a 5811 ruby version, blah blah blah. No, you just keep continuing with the 57s, especially if you're talking off catalog. These are people, special people, so you're gonna do that for them,
right? But he's being intentionally vague here, and he wants to keep us guessing, and he's intentionally throwing this curveball by saying which form, engraving or new movement and so on. You can read everything into that answer, but what he's generally saying is that the 5811 will return in steel. I think you can like on a broader level, you can actually, he's at least playing with that thought, and that's the major announcement that, as Orsid so rightly said, no one covered so far. So it is very, very newsworthy, I think, because it's very telling as far as Patek's strategy for the future goes. Actually, speaking of the future, we're in the future in Germany already. It's midnight. And
thanks for staying on, SE. Appreciate it.
Have to hop off. It was
hop
a
off.
pleasure.
Thanks so much for your analysis and input in today's show, and thanks for also getting this translation done and allowing us to get a window into Terry Stern's mind. So really appreciate it. I know you're a huge Patek fan, and I'm glad that you could be on the panel to analyze this with us.
Thank you so much, guys.
See you later.
It was great as always. See you soon.
See you later.
See ya. Peace out. What does he mean by economically limited quota? So if you think about Patek Philippe, they make 70,000 watches a year. They have kind of a self-imposed cap on the number of sports pieces that they want to be as part of their production, which is 30%, which means there's approximately 20,000 units that they produce. And those units are split between, not split evenly, but they're split between the Nautilus, Aquanaut, and Cubitus. And so as you come out with the Cubitus and introduce more models and increase production, that means that Aquanaut and Nautilus go down. And when they go down, you have to think about, okay, well, which pieces are we going to be producing? If we're going to be producing 4,000 Nautiluses, how many are going to be this complication? How many are going to be in this material? How much are going to be steel versus gold versus platinum versus gem set versus travel time versus chronograph, etc. And because they've gotten so fat and lazy, making so much money, they don't want margins to go down. So when they say, listen, so instead of making 1,000 in steel, let's make 200 in steel. We'll do the 5990 in steel or whatever it is, and the 5712 or whatever, or the 5726, and we'll do a few hundred units of those in steel, but the rest we'll do in gold, and that helps keep us super rich and fat. So that's, I think, what he means by economically limited quota.
Listen, if the wheel isn't broke, you know what I mean, don't fix it. I have a feeling when he took over, his dad like had a few different rules, and it was like, hey, you keep that percentage of steel at this percentage. This is the key. So like, yeah, if I was him, I doubt there'd be like 1 or 2 steel models, because you could do what you want. So I definitely understand it. Yeah, I do feel economically limited as well. You gotta keep those limits. I love it.
Yeah, if you actually go through the collection, which I'll share here, when you actually go through the lineup, and let's see, and click on the Nautilus. I mean, there's only a couple of things in steel here. It is the 5726 they still do in steel, both on the strap and on the bracelet. And the 5990 is in steel as well. And that's it. That's all they do in steel.
That's it. But they produce a lot of steel watches on a whole now. Where before only the Nautilus was steel, now you have a steel World Timer, you have a steel 5212. So it's interesting how the total production is, and I think that he doesn't like. I think he doesn't like that steel has leaked over out of the sports category, and we need to get it back into check.
Yep. Well, I think that's mainly what I wanted to cover today. This exclusive interview with Terry Stern in NZZ. Yeah.
That's a good interview. It's a
good interview. Yep, good picture. There's a stock picture here. He looks great. He's wearing the watch on the right wrist, unless it was flipped around the other way. Could be flipped. You never know. But that's it. Anything else? Anyone else want to jump on? Otherwise, hey, guys, appreciate your joining in, and we will now leave you with maybe Reach for the Crown. You want to Reach for the Crown as an outro? Sure, why not?
You cannot beat Reach for the Crown. I love it every time.
Upvote the live stream and make sure you subscribe. Notifications set to all. If you're watching this on the replay, please leave a comment. If you're watching this on the replay, leave a comment. I read and respond to every single comment. So yeah, let's do it. We're gonna Reach for the Crown. Peace out, guys. Have a great rest of your night.
Peace.
Peace.
you.
I'm still here. All right. See you guys. Peace out. Have a great night.